Welcome back to the Mesa Arts Center, our Arizona Republican presidential debate. The four contenders on stage tonight. Gentlemen, our time is short, so one last question. 9 states have voted so far. We talked a bit earlier about the volatility in the race. The people of Arizona vote Tuesday, Michigan on Tuesday, Wyoming and Washington State, then Super Tuesday. Beyond that, 14 states over the next 10 days or so. Republican voters are clearly having a hard time. I want to close with this question. Help the voters who still have questions about you. What is the biggest misconception about you in the public debate right now? Congressman Paul, we'll start with you, sir.
I would say the perpetuation of the myth by the media that I can't win. And the totally ignoring some statistics that showed it to be the opposite. Just recently there was a poll in Iowa, and it matched all the four of us up against Obama. And guess what? I did the very best. So I would say that is the biggest myth. But let me tell you, though, in public perception is one thing, but when you go around and talk to the American people and we have our rallies, that misconception isn't there. And I think that's the biggest misconception that I have to deal with. Mr. Speaker?
I think that the fact is that the American public are really desperate to find somebody who can solve real problems. I think that's why it's been going up and down and why you've had all sorts of different folks as front runners. And all I can say is that my background of having actually worked with President Reagan, then having been Speaker, if there was one thing I wish the American people could know about me, it would be the amount of work it took to get to welfare reform, a balanced budget, a 4.2% unemployment rate, and that you've got to have somebody who can actually get it done in Washington, not just describe it on the campaign trail.
Governor Romney?
We've got to restore America's promise in this country, where people know that with hard work and education that they're going to be secure and prosperous and that their kids will have a brighter future than they've had. For that to happen, we're going to have dramatic fundamental change in Washington, D.C. We're going to have to create more jobs, have less debt, and shrink the size of government. I'm the only person in this race.
Is there a misconception about you? The question is a misconception.
You get to ask the questions you want. I get to give the answers I want. And
fair enough.
And I believe that there's a whole question about what do we need as the person that should be president. What's their position on this issue? Who can be the toughest going after Obama? But what we really need, in my opinion, is to say who can lead the country through the kind of fundamental change we have in front of us. And we have people here who all have different backgrounds. I spent 25 years in the private sector. I worked in business. I worked in helping turn around the Olympics. I worked in helping lead a state. I believe that kind of background and skill is what's essential to restore the American promise. If people think there's something else in my background that's more important, they don't want to vote for me, that's their right. But I believe I have the passion, the commitment, and the skill to turn America around, and I believe that's what's needed.
Senator Santorum.
I think the thing I've heard from the very beginning, can you defeat Barack Obama? And if you want to look at the people on the stage, we're going to be running against a president who's going to have the national media behind him. He's going to have more money, a lot more money, because he isn't having to spend a penny in the primary. So he's going to outspend whoever it is, and he's going to have the national media on its side. Maybe you'd want a candidate who's not going to be able to win an election by beating the tar out of his opponent, spending 4 and 5 to 1 in order to win an election in a state, but actually can run a campaign based on issues and ideas and a vision that's positive for America, be able to be outspent and yet cut through because you have a strong vision, you have principles and convictions that is going to convince the American public that you're on their side in making a big difference in our country and keeping us safe and prosperous. So we're looking for I think people are, if they're looking for someone who can do a lot with a little, run a campaign on a shoestring and win a bunch of states and rise in the polls. You're looking for someone who can take what's going on in Washington and look at what on my campaign and see someone who can do a lot with a little. That's what we need in Washington, not just after the election, but we're going to need to have that before the election. And I'm the best person from a state which is a key swing state, from a region of the country which is going to decide this election, right across the Rust Belt of America. We've got the programs, we've got the plan, and we can win and defeat Barack Obama and govern this country conservatively.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of our candidates tonight. We also want to thank our partner tonight, the Republican Party of Arizona. And we'd like to thank our hosts here at the Mesa Arts Center, a beautiful venue here. Be sure to join us Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern for our live coverage of the Arizona and the Michigan primaries. Our coverage of America's Choice 2012 continues right now.